Okay, real quick. Let's address this Mike Walls, Alex Wong being out. Trump dismisses, fires two members of his national security team. I know that everybody's going to cloak everything. And, well, he resigned. He stepped away. Everybody knows what happened here. He was fired. Trump fired him. I talked about the necessity for this a while ago. Remember when I talked about it? Mike Walls, if he is the responsible party, and I think we could probably guess that by now, who's been on this show, and I have nothing personal against Mike Walls, should be fired and fired immediately. It should serve as a lesson to everybody in this administration that accidents, mistakes, they're not good enough. It won't work. We only have 4 years. We have to move at breakneck speed and purpose, getting things done. Boo-boos like that can sink us. So he's gone. All right? But it is what it is. This is how things need to happen. It's a harsh world. It's a harsh life. The stakes of the game are high. That's where we're at. Now, on to something else before we get to these judges really quickly. In fact, Elvis Chan is going to lead us right to these judges. Elvis Chan. You remember Elvis Chan. Elvis Chan was the guy who was liaising, we'll use that wonderful professional term, with Facebook, other social media companies on behalf of the FBI to ensure Hunter Biden's laptop story was censored and the American people can't see it. He took his position as special agent at the FBI and used it to try to help Joe Biden win an election. I was calling for his head a while ago. I believe everything that comes out of the DOJ, FBI, everywhere, I believe all of it is a lie. I think I'm being lied to at all times. And if you would like to earn back my trust so I believe you ever again about anything, you will arrest that human being. You will put him through a public trial for violating the civil rights of Americans, for abusing his post at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And as soon as the cell door closes on Elvis Chan, as he begins his 30-year prison sentence in Fort Leavenworth, then you will start to earn back a little bit of my trust. Okay, well, this isn't that, but it's a start, something to celebrate. He's been placed on terminal leave. Okay, they fired him. He probably, we don't know all the details yet, still going to collect a government check, retirement, things like that. So is this enough? No, it's not near enough. But if this is step one to putting that evil secret state police henchman behind bars, good. If this is the end of it, then it's not good. Then it's pathetic. But if this is the start, and it very well may be, I say that's a good thing. And people must go to prison. Because, of course, we're going to be talking a lot about the judges tonight, the judicial system. And judges have to go to prison. Before we get to the specific judges and things like that, remember this. Communism is revolutionary. Always has been, always was. It's a revolutionary religion. It believes that it has to tear down the existing structures, the existing power structures, existing institutions. It's revolutionary. And because it's revolutionary, it involves breaking the law. It always has. It's going to break whatever existing laws are there in whatever country it's trying to have a revolution in. You have to, if you're having a revolution, you can't have a revolution and be lawful about it, right? So communists are always breaking the law. They lie, they murder, they hurt people, they burn things. This is how communists act because they're revolutionaries. And that's how they justify it in their mind. But something kept happening as the communists globally kept trying to get their movement into place in country after country after country. It wasn't just Russia. These people were always trying in France, in Germany, in Italy, in America. They kept running into the institutions. They kept slamming into them, mainly the law enforcement institutions here in the United States of America. We had so many radical communist groups who wanted to murder everybody and burn everything down, groups like the Weather Underground, but they kept running into the law. They kept getting arrested for their crimes. Hey, you can't arrest me. It was just a nail bomb. They had to go back to the drawing board. And they figured out, hey, if we keep running into the justice system in America, if they keep stopping us, if that wall keeps stopping the revolution, well, why don't we just take over the justice system? And so, credit to them, for years and years and years and years and years, America's communists have taken over the law schools of this country. In those law schools, they educate generation after generation after generation of lawyers, and of course, the lawyers become judges in communist indoctrination. The belief that communism is great, Democrats are wonderful, Republicans are evil, and these foot soldiers go out into the legal world and they use whatever positions of power they can find to push and protect the communist revolution. Exhibit A great one would be the judge in New Mexico, a judge in New Mexico who was caught and photographed with a prison gang, a foreign prison gang member living with him and his wife.
Judge Cano, soon to be former Judge Cano, got his charges were just unsealed. He's charged with obstruction. He admitted post Miranda. He took one of the TDA members' cell phones himself, took it, beat it with a hammer, destroyed it, and then walked the pieces to a city dumpster to dispose of it to protect him. The wife also is charged with destroying evidence. Sandra, not only that, this TDA member, and he had on a necklace that said kill, something about death. He had tattoos all over him. He also had on his cell phone pictures of 2 decapitated victims. The judge and his wife gave him assault rifles that belonged to their daughter. That's what they're charged with. In the criminal report affidavit, he goes to a shooting range with these assault rifles, with a suppressor, with other known TDA members, and they're shooting. This is the last person that we want in our country, nor will we ever tolerate a judge or anyone else harboring them.
The judge doesn't see himself as a judge. Probably, most likely, has never really seen himself as a judge. He's always been a communist revolutionary. Communist revolutionaries know the increase in violent crime helps the revolution. So that judge worked his way up through the legal system and put on those judges' robes so he could push the revolution, protect the revolution, you see? This Dugan is no different. Remember this Judge Dugan in Wisconsin? Remember this judge who got arrested because she did what now? There was an illegal in her courtroom. She found out the illegal was about to be deported. She grabbed him and his lawyer, pulled him into her private chambers, and whisked him out the back door so he could escape arrest and deportation. To a normal person, when they hear these stories, their mind just gets completely blown. But I understand perfectly what's going on. You see, Hannah Dugan is not a judge. It's a uniform she wears. And you know what? Uniform isn't even the right word. It's a costume. She puts on a costume as a judge. Hannah Dugan's a communist.
The law is a real challenge in making sure that justice happens for people. It's transformative in people's lives, but it also, especially in the United States, it's considered a stabilizing force. It's something that keeps us on a constant path. The rule of law is how we address our social issues, how we address our disputes, but also how we grow as people. I, as a person who for a couple decades almost represented low-income people, it is due process that really equalizes those differences between people. Then we're able to achieve that equal justice that we are promised and hope to have continue despite our differences, despite our class differences, despite our racial and religious differences.
Is that a judge? Just up there interpreting the law, administering justice. Is that how she sees herself? Of course not. It's not a judge. That's a costume. She's a communist. These judges are all across the country. And we should pause on this really quickly and talk just for a brief moment about why these judges are all over the country. It's not just because Democrats are evil communists. It's because Republicans are weak and pathetic, and they're too weak and pathetic to actually stand up and stop any of this madness. If you'd like to know why you have judges in place all across the country who who are communist revolutionaries stopping the Trump administration, allow me to introduce to you to Senator John Cornyn.
This sounds like a case of misplaced sympathy by those who are somehow saying the judge is being treated unfairly. Unfortunately, in Washington, D.C., you have these competing narratives, and people back home in Texas and elsewhere wonder, what the truth is. But so far, based on what we know, based on your report, it looks to me like the judge had misplaced sympathies, and rather than enforcing the law impartially as she should have, was actively aiding and abetting an illegal immigrant to avoid the enforcement of the law.
Let me tell you something. That way of thinking, that way of speaking, has done as much to bring about the communist revolution of this country as the communists themselves. The people we elect hoping they'll go back and fight against them, make excuses for them. Essentially, people like John Cornyn have been in Washington, D.C. for a long time, holding the door open so we can't slam it shut, letting as many communists through. Misplaced sympathies. This pathetic weakness is why we are where we are. Don't speak like that. Speak like Trump speaks about these judges. Trump knows exactly what he's dealing with now.
We cannot allow a handful of communist radical left judges to obstruct the enforcement of our laws and assume the duties that belong solely to the President of the United States. Judges are trying to take away the power given to the President to keep our country safe, and it's not a good thing. But I hope, for the sake of our country, that the Supreme Court is going to save this, because we have to do something. These people are just looking to destroy our country. Nothing will stop me in the mission to keep America safe again. It's very simple. Keep America safe again.
So why hasn't the Supreme Court stepped in? They could. You realize that. We're 100 days into the Trump presidency. These judges have been acting this way for the entire 100 days. Why haven't they stepped in? Why hasn't John Roberts stepped up, put a stop to these ridiculous judges? Why can't he see what's happening? Why can't he see that his own legitimacy, the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, is evaporating day by day? You have people like me already saying, ignore the Supreme Court. Why won't he step in? Well, the truth is, we forget this, that judges, even Supreme Court ones, they're flesh and blood human beings. They have loves, they have fears, they have families. Why do you think Democrats routinely speak like this now?
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
Right after that video, an assassin flew from California with a gun to blow Brett Kavanaugh's head off, got arrested just in time outside of his home. Maybe the Supreme Court understands Democrats are threatening their lives. That's the situation we're in. It's dire.
I mean, I think when you start looking at how the judge was treated after the events that led to the charge, so where and when and how she was arrested, and the fact that she was arrested at the courthouse rather than her own residence, the fact that she was placed in a jail cell for hours before her arraignment was called in the court later in the afternoon, these things are unprecedented. Typically, upstanding members of the community who have no criminal history and aren't accused of a violent act are allowed to self-surrender at the time of their arraignment. The fact that they did not offer that courtesy to her and instead went out of their way to treat her harshly, I believe is an act of performative cruelty on behalf of the Department of Justice, which is not the way any Department of Justice should be acting.
Yeah. I remember how Peter Navarro got arrested. I remember that fat old man in Utah who had to use a cane to get around. He didn't even get arrested. They just flat out showed up and gunned him down. But I guess it's unprecedented. Joining me now, my friend, CEO, co-founder of the wonderful Federalist, Sean Davis. Hey, Sean, it's unprecedented that they would arrest her in public. Gosh, I can't believe this.
Well, I mean, first off, Andrew McCabe should be sharing a cell with her. The fact that that guy is out walking free after lying under oath repeatedly about his activities in the Russiagate collusion hoax is absurd. But like you, I've been alive for the last 5, 10 years. I remember peaceful J6ers charged with misdemeanors having people come with guns raid at dawn to raid their homes in dark. So this idea that it's unprecedented, McCabe and all his friends were doing the same nonsense against their political enemies for years. And instead of trying to block it, he was cheering it on. And sorry to say, they're at the find out stage now of the rule of law. They're sowing and we're reaping. And the only thing that makes it better is how sad they are about it.
These people thought they were going to hold power forever, right, Sean? It's very obvious the way they conducted themselves under Joe Biden. They just thought it was never going to end, which it just completely blows me away. It baffles the mind. But they operate as if they will never, ever, ever be the ones on the receiving end of this stuff.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, you almost have to defend that assumption because we know what Republicans looked like in Washington and how they ruled and how cowardly they were before Donald Trump showed up. So they can almost be forgiven for assuming that Republicans will just lie back and let Democrats do whatever they want. But it's a new era now, and the right is not the same right as it was 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. We've seen what they've done. We understand, look, we wanted a certain set of rules that applied to everyone. They rejected that. So now they get their own rules, good and hard. And thankfully, Donald Trump understands the importance of doing that. You can't have two systems of justice. So either we're going to have ours where everyone is treated normally and everyone gets the right protections and is treated with dignity, or we are going to get what the left did to us for years. And that's what they're getting. And if they don't like it, tough.
Sean, talk to me about Judge Boasberg. He's been all over the news. He just, by a miracle from God on high, happens to get all these cases that's supposed to be random. He happens to get all of them dropped in his lap. And of course, he's a communist revolutionary. We don't have to mince words about the whole thing. But who is this guy? Where'd he come from?
It's fascinating. He's been on the bench for a long time. He was actually on the FISA court while Andrew McCabe's FBI was illegally spying on Donald Trump and his campaign. So Boasberg, who sat back and watched that happen, to go and then magically get these cases, which weren't randomly assigned. They were supposed to go to a particular emergency judge who was on duty when a lot of these cases came in. We know he intervened and made sure that he got the case because he wanted to make himself a left-wing judicial hero. And what he's doing is nothing less than judicial tyranny, judicial insurrection. He's taken powers that don't belong to him. He's exercising authorities that no one gave to him. And he's all but daring Trump to come and ignore him, which, by the way, I hope he does sooner rather than later.
Sean, the Supreme Court. Everyone knows they should step in. Trump has said they should step in. I'm sure that, look, I've talked about it before, but if they don't, what do we do? It's one thing to say, well, Justice Roberts needs to step in and stop these judges, but if they don't, are we just done?
No, we're not. In the comparison or metaphor I would use is I would compare the Supreme Court's credibility to fiat currency. So like the little pieces of paper we carry around with dead presidents and some non-presidents on them, those only have value because we all assume they have value. It's not based on gold. It's not based on the inherent value of the piece of paper. We assume it has value, and so therefore we impute it to it value. The Supreme Court's credibility relies on the same types of assumptions. The Supreme Court has no army. It has no ability to declare war. It has no battalions it controls. It doesn't control the purse. It can't appropriate money. All it has is the assumption on behalf of the people in the two other branches that it is worth listening to and following. And so the longer that this goes on with John Roberts allowing the circus to continue, the more likely it is that we all just decide, you know what, when it comes to the president or Congress, you actually don't have the power to do anything if we don't acknowledge it. So we're going to steamroll you and ignore you, and you can write all the fun little opinions and papers that you want. But at the end of the day, if no one believes that you have the authority to do what you're doing, then you truly have no authority to do anything, and you're meaningless. And I think in the long run, that would be bad for people to get to that point, but they're making it inevitable. It's not Donald Trump making this inevitable. It is the fecklessness and the cowardice of this Supreme Court doing nothing that's going to make it inevitable if they continue down this road.
Sean, This is why they threaten these people. This is why it's not just Chuck Schumer. Everyone saw that little tidbit. We played it in the opening. Everyone's seen it before. Democrat after Democrat has threatened these judges. We've had multiple protests in front of their homes. We had an assassin almost come very, very close to actually killing Brett Kavanaugh. This wasn't done accidentally. It made these people be afraid. Amy Coney Barrett just had a bomb threat for her sister. The left knows what it's doing.
Yeah, and this is the same intimidation game they played with John Roberts back in, I think it was 2012 with the Obamacare decision. He understood it was unconstitutional. He knew that Congress and Obama didn't have the authority to do what they did. But because he got intimidated and the New York Times said some mean things about him, he switched his vote at the last minute. And that's basically defined his entire tenure as Chief Justice and as a member of the Supreme Court. He's a coward who can be bullied around. Personally, I think that a lot of what he has said, that he cares about the legitimacy of the court and this and that, I think that's just a smokescreen for he wants to be in charge. He wants to make certain decisions. And when he gets to do what he wants, the court is protecting its legitimacy. And that when he doesn't want to do something he doesn't want, he couches it in the same language. I think these people really, I think they're just cowards. I don't think it's more complicated than that.
Let's shift gears really quickly and talk about this guy.
I was very involved. Our field office, FBI San Francisco, was very involved in helping to protect the U.S. elections in 2020. And I think we can all agree, or I think many of us can agree, that it was a very safe election. We talked with all of these entities I mentioned regularly, at least on a monthly basis, and right before the election, probably on a weekly basis, right? If they were seeing anything unusual, if we were seeing anything unusual, sharing intelligence with technology companies, with social media companies, so that they could protect their own platforms, right?
Why is Elvis Chan not in prison? I'm happy he's on leave. Why not prison?
Yeah, I had the exact same question. You beat me to it. This guy was a key part of an illegal censorship effort during an election, a time when we should all be able to speak freely more than any other time because of the stakes. He and his corrupt agency were out there telling these social media companies that the Hunter Biden laptop was fake, that it was Russian disinformation, when they had known for more than a year that that was a lie. So yeah, he should be in handcuffs, not on television. He should not be on leave. He should have been frog marched out of that building in handcuffs, awaiting indictment for what he and his entire garbage agency did to this country over years. So I don't have a good answer for you. Hopefully somebody somewhere does, or maybe they're working on it and they just haven't gotten to it yet.
Hopefully. Sean, my brother, thank you. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.